Dr. Bashar al-Assad wins a landslide victory in the presidential elections, being chosen by an absolute majority for a new constitutional term. In celebration of Dr. Bashar al-Assad's victory in the presidential elections, massive rallies and marches are held all across the country. Putin warns against the danger of terrorists in Syria and the European security, referring to the U.S. hostile policy in the international arena. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Irado Krikorian from the News Center in Damascus. Assembly Speaker Dr. Mohammed Jihad al-Laham announced that Dr. Bashar Hafez al-Assad has won the presidential elections of the Syrian Arab Republic, garnering 88.7% of the total votes.
In a press conference, People's Assembly Speaker Mohammed Jihad al-Laham announced that Dr. Bashar Hafez al-Assad has been elected as President of the Syrian Arab Republic for a new constitutional term, having garnered a landslide majority with 10,319,723 votes and 88.7% of the valid votes. The number of eligible voters has reached 15,845,575 citizens, and the number of voters has reached 11,634,412 voters, while the number of invalid papers reached at 442,108 with 3.8%. Al-Laham added that Dr. Bashar Hafez al-Assad garnered 10,319,723 votes, with 88.7% out of the total valid votes. Dr. Hassan Abdullah al-Nouri got 500.279 votes with a percentage of 4.3% of the valid votes, while Mr. Maher Abdul Hafiz Hajjar got 372,301 with a percentage of 3.2% of the valid votes. Speaker al-Laham said that the announcement of the results came in accordance with Article number 86 of the Constitution and Item B of the Article 79 of the General Election Law, expressing his pride in the Syrian people's national choice and their correct decision to choose the most qualified candidate to lead the country.
Thousands of Syrian citizens celebrated the presidential victory of Dr. Bashar Hafez al-Assad in various Syrian provinces following the announcement of People's Assembly Speaker Mohammed Jihad al-Laham that Dr. Bashar Hafez al-Assad has won the presidential elections with an absolute majority and will lead the country for a new constitutional term.
Syrians from various ages took to the streets shouting national slogans and raising high Syrian flags, expressing their joy over the victory of President al-Assad. They also expressed their support to the Syrian Arab Army in the battle against terrorism, asserting that Syria would emerge victorious. Moreover, thousands of Syrians gathered in Umayyad Mosque in Damascus to express joy of the presidential victory of President al-Assad, hoisting national flags and shouting slogans. The participants asserted that the victory of President al-Assad is a victory over terrorism, takfiri thought and darkness, adding that this victory shows the unwavering determination of the Syrians to rebuild the strong and new Syria.
In the occupied Syrian Golan, thousands of residents took to the streets and main squares in the villages of Mas'ada, Baq'ata, Majd al-Shams and Ain Qinya in celebration of President al-Assad's landslide victory in the election, expressing joy and happiness. The Golan residents carried Syrian flags and photos of President Dr. Bashar al-Assad, shouting slogans in support of the Syrian Arab Army and the great sacrifices offered by every single Syrian citizen in combating terrorism and preserving the country's national unity. Welcome back. Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi stressed that the presidential elections represented an important turning point in Syria's modern history, brought about by the steadfastness of the Syrian people who showed unparalleled awareness for exercising democracy. Al-Halaqi pointed out in a statement to journalists that President al-Assad is a leader who has a message and a national project which fulfills the aspirations of the Syrian people and can lead the country to become prosperous in economic, cultural and technological fields.
The Syrian people embody a real message which says that legitimacy can only be given by the people themselves, and all other voices constitute false dreams embraced by the West can mean nothing in comparison to the courage and heroism of the Syrian people.
Presidential candidate Dr. Hassan al-Nouri held a press conference at the Sheraton Hotel in Damascus in which he congratulated Dr. Bashar al-Assad for winning a new presidential term and for the confidence of the vast majority of the Syrian voters. Al-Nouri pointed out that the presidential elections proved to be fair and transparent, adding that he and his election team have supervised the votes counting process. He went on to say that boycotting the election was a great mistake and very disappointing to 11 million Syrian voters who actually took part in the process. And Nouri concluded by saying that French President François Hollande has done a great disservice to France and not to Syria by calling for boycotting the elections, which can be considered a humiliation to democracy and human rights. Assistant Foreign and Expatriates Minister Dr. Hamid Hassan said the voting for president has dealt a severe blow to those countries that have been supporting terrorism in Syria. Hassan was speaking during his meeting with a delegation comprising members of the Syrian community in France. The Syrians headed to the polls yesterday, June the 3rd, to cast their ballots in a presidential race with 3 candidates on the ballot paper, including incumbent President Dr. Bashar al-Assad. Some countries, including France, have banned the voting on their own territory, prompting Syrian community members there to run flights to Syria to cast their votes in an act of defiance. The delegation members, for their part, underscored support to their homeland, army and armed forces against the fierce war waged against their own country. Finally, Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that al-Qaeda-linked terrorists fighting in Syria would pose a great threat to Europe in the future. Commenting on the U.S. policy, Putin said that Washington was still adopting an aggressive policy and that American military bases are deployed in various parts of the world. He added that the United States gives itself the right to determine other people's future that are thousands of kilometers away from the American border. On Ukraine, Putin asserted that the Ukrainian crisis should not be turned into a new Cold War, stressing the necessity of settling it through dialogue. Putin called upon the Ukrainian authorities to launch a dialogue and not to resort to tanks and jet fighters. Putin's comments came before his visit to France, scheduled today, during which he would hold talks with the French President François Hollande and take part in marking the 70th anniversary of Normandy landings during World War II. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Karun Kürkcan, but after a short break.